Well, thank you guys for letting me be a part of this. This is a difficult topic. I mean, we live in a different world. So let me start with a few things. I've been in private practice as a therapist for 23 years. I deal in trauma. I'm a specialist in trauma, treating both trauma with trauma-informed hypnotherapy, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. For 29 years, concurrent with my ministry and my private practice, I've been a police chaplain. And I've been assigned to a tactical team all 29 years. So I've been enmeshed with the Huntsville SWAT team. I do some negotiation training. I'm the rappel master, so I teach young police officers how to slide down ropes on buildings. And then I do a lot of work with them when they deal with trauma, confrontation, and I'm currently on a contract teaching de-escalation skills, and the governor said they want every cop in Alabama to be trained. We do a 40-hour certification, and we do a 16-hour introduction. And so everybody that carries a badge in Alabama is supposed to be trained by it. We're starting a mental health unit in town so that when a young police officer gets dispatched to somebody in crisis. And so, you know, I think the idea of, hey, my child's being bullied is a crisis. Or my child is a bully. That's a crisis. So we're going to have some parameters. You know, is somebody making my child uncomfortable? Well, here's a glass to get over it and a straw to suck it up. Sorry, Karen, I didn't mean to offend you. Or is somebody putting my child at risk? Physical, intellectual, emotional, or spiritual? That's a different animal. I deal with toxicity different than I deal with normalcy. Give me a 3-year-old child. A 3-year-old child wants to be what? Independent, in charge, do what they want to. A 3-year-old child acting like a 3-year-old child is, guess what? It's 3-year-old child behavior. When a 3-year-old child is defiant and says, I won't do it and you can't make me, I bet I can. Okay? So, you know, we teach the young cadets, you ask, you tell, you make. That works for us. So when we start talking about, okay, here's a behavior, is it uncomfortable or is it dangerous? And depending on your level of sensitivity, we would interpret those things differently. So let's have conversations with parents that we would have with our kids about bullying. 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. Paul is on a mission trip. He's taking Timothy with him. They get to the city of Ephesus, and Paul has a vision that says, come over to Macedonia and help us. And Paul says, I'm going over there, you stay here, you're in charge. I've been on some mission trips. I went on a mission trip, and they required, well, they asked me to turn in my ID and my passport. Not super comfortable being in a foreign country, not having my American citizenship being able to be established. So they didn't get my passport and my ID. That's like when my wife started coaching volleyball. I didn't know volleyball was a polite sport. I was in there dog barking, having a good time. She came up there and said, honey, they're gonna kick you out of here. I said, they may ask me to leave. They're gonna kick me nowhere. All right. So, but imagine being in a foreign country on a mission trip, and the guy leading the trip says, you're in charge, I'm going over here, and leaves. Paul will write later to Timothy and said, I remember on our departure your tears. He left this kid in Ephesus to be in charge of the church, to deal with Jewish myths, Jewish creation myths, the temple cult of goddess of Diana of the Ephesians. People with Jewish genealogies. He had to establish elders, and then Paul writes him in the second letter and says, hey, you got to be aware of these false teachers that are. So Paul's left this young man who is somewhat timid in the first place in a foreign. Now, if I ever see Paul again, we're going to have a serious talk. But he writes to this young man, notice what he tells him. 1 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear. Anybody got a different word there? Timidity. Anybody got a different word? That's probably King James, NIV. Anybody rocking an NLT? 1:7. 2 Timothy 1:7. There's two of those. Sorry. God did not give us a spirit of fear, timidity, cowardice. A little harsher word. By the way, cowardice and unbelief almost always are paired together in the Bible. It's real interesting. When the people won't go from Kadesh Barnea into the land of Canaan, it boils down, both the Hebrew writer and Moses will say, you did not enter because you did not believe. Their excuse was, we were afraid. But the Hebrew writer says they didn't go in because they didn't believe. Cowardice and unbelief almost always paired together, even in the Revelation. Now the fearful and the unbelieving, the godless, or the cowardly and the unbelieving, almost always together. Any other words? Okay, Timothy, you did not come from the factory. You were not installed with a spirit of fear, timidity, or cowardice. There are only two fears you're born with: falling backwards and loud noises. That's it. Everything else you are afraid of, you have been conditioned to be afraid of or learned to be afraid of it. That's it. The only two fears you come from the factory with is loud noises and falling backwards. That's why you take a little baby and do that and they go, that's fun. But anyway, all right, God didn't give us this cowardice, this timidity, or this fear. And I'm going to add to that, He didn't wire us for anxiety. As a therapist in the last 5 years, everybody under the age of 17 comes into my office has an anxiety problem. Well, to quote The Princess Bride, I think you use this word and don't know what the meaning is. Okay? It's overused. You can be nervous and it not be anxiety. Okay? God did not give us a feeling of a spirit of timidity, fear, or cowardice, but what? Of love, power, and a sound mind. That means, as people, God has given us self-efficacy. We have autonomy. I have the ability to control my vessel. In fact, Paul will use a chariot racing term in 1 Thessalonians, that this is your sanctification, that every one of you know how to possess his own vessel. I guess in modern speech we'd say, stay in your lane, bro. Okay? I get to control this machine right here. And your power over this machine right here is only as great as I grant to you. So when you start talking to your kids about bullies or what somebody did or what somebody said, the first thing is, are you abdicating some of your power? Now, I hate to self-promote, but I've actually written an essay on this. It's called Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space. It's on Amazon. I got asked to do some sports consulting at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym with some professional grapplers. And these guys don't really have much use for a 58-year-old purple belt, but they did have some advice for a guy who's been on the planet 58 years and knew some things about life and marriage and things. So I wrote this book and sponsored a tournament with it. And basically it talks about controlling your inside space. And a couple of rules for grappling is control the head, control the body. If I put my hands on your head, I control that animal. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. If we can help our children change the way they think about their own sense of power, whose image they're created in, and the fact that they came from the factory, not with fear, not with anxiety, not with cowardice, but with power, with love, and a sound mind, that's very powerful. Second thing is, I refuse, this is in the grappling book, I refuse to take responsibility for things that I don't control. If you're going to make me responsible for it, then you're going to give me absolute control, or I'm not going to be responsible for it. And grappling, if we start to wrestle, there's this thing called top pressure. If I get on top of you and can make you bear most of my weight, and in a proper position from a side control, I'm 185 pounds, I can make you think I weigh 400. It is soul-stealing pressure. I've had guys tap to my top pressure. If you take a man's soul, he'll give you his arm. You can end a lot of... The Gracie combative techniques that they teach the cops, they say 100 seconds. If you get on top of a guy and can just ride for 100 seconds, he'll run out of gas. When I taught my daughter self-defense, I said, you survive a minute, and most predators are out of gas. Now, her rule was if you get off the mat, you win. I didn't want her to learn how to arm bar anybody or choke anybody. I wanted her to create space and get out. So I'm not going to accept responsibility for things I don't control. And then number 3 is I'm not going to let you control something that doesn't belong to you. If you let me get a hold of your head, your wrist, your elbow, your ankle, or your knee, not only can I control you, I can cripple you. And if I let you control my self-worth, my spirituality, my competence, my confidence, my happiness, my success, not only can you control and manipulate me, make me go where you want me to go, you can also cripple me. So when we start talking about God gave us a power of self-efficacy, He gave us a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind, and that sound mind sometimes has been translated as self-control. So we have to realize that ultimately we have to teach our children that you are in ultimate control of yourself. Other people's words only have the power you give them. Now, as a user of words, God cautions me. There's some things you say. You got to be kind. You got to be gentle. Your words need to be with grace, seasoned with salt, that it may impart grace to the hearers. Life and death are found in the tongue. That's, as a word user, I got to be careful how I talk to you. But when you talk to me, your words only have the power I give them. Remember the story of Elijah? This means yes. This means no. It means you're not voting. Remember the story of Elijah? He goes up on Mount Carmel, challenges the priest. Hey, ask God to light your altar. I'll ask my God to light my altar. We'll see whose God listens. His altar gets burned to the ground, evaporates the water, and is reduced to cosmic dust. The prophets of Baal, their altars never moved. Not even so much as a spark. Take the 450 prophets of Baal and execute them. Then Ahab runs to his wife Jezebel. Told her everything that Elijah had done. She sends a message to Elijah. 1 Kings 19, may the gods do also to me also if by tomorrow at this time you're not a dead man. Now she's written Elijah a nastygram. She's posted on Facebook. Elijah, I've invoked the gods into your demise. If I'm Elijah, how do I respond to that? Meet me on Mount Carmel. Wear something comfortable. You stand over there, I'll stand over here. You ask your God to kill me, I'll ask my God to kill you. We'll see how that works for you. Isn't that a logical response to this lady? But when Elijah the prophet heard this, he was filled with fear. He went as far as Beersheba, and he left his servant. And he went a day's journey into the wilderness, and he asked the Lord that he might die. And he said, it is enough, O Lord, I am no better than my ancestors. How does Jezebel's words have more power than what God has said? How does what Jezebel says she's going to do become more powerful than what God has already done? That's a distortion in thinking. That's a personal choice that Elijah made. And so sometimes we have to talk to our young people and say, hey, just because somebody said this or did this doesn't make it true. Right? And every time you're traumatized, big T trauma or little t trauma, if something happens to you, you have some implicit meanings. Implicit meanings are things that you feel to be true, but they're not really true. Everybody has an implicit belief that spiders are creepy, right? Okay, why? Well, they are. Well, why? Well, they'll bite you. There's 2 venomous spiders in America. Brown recluse, black widow. What color are they? Well, they're gray and they're dark. No, they're every color of the rainbow. What's a crab? What's creepier, a crab or a spider? Crab's a spider that this big, lives underwater. Do you eat crab legs? Oh, yeah. Oh, spiders are creepy, but give me a bucket of butter and me and a crab can be best friends. It's all about interpretation, isn't it? So an implicit belief is something I've never really challenged with logic. And so when you're traumatized, it says something about you. I'm weak, I'm hurt, I'm powerless, I'm worthless. It says something about the person doing the traumatizing. they're powerful, they can't be trusted, adults are bad, kids are mean. It says something about my past, I've always been, and it says something about my future, I never will be. And oftentimes it says something about God. Give me an addictive behavior, a sexual identity distortion, and I'll give you a child who's traumatized in some way, shape, or form. I'll borrow money to bet on it. Because we get these implicit beliefs about who we are and what sexuality is and what my sexual identity is and what my gender is, and it's all ranked in trauma. So when we talk to children about the power of other people's words, and it's very interesting to talk about. So this is Fido's house. Everybody know who Fido is, right? He's a dog. Fido stands for forget it, drive on. Okay? So when somebody says something to your children, a teacher, a coach, another kid, another adult, you got to ask a series of questions. Number one, you ask, is this true? Now that's a yes or no question, right? I said something about you, and it's either true or it's not. Lonnie, you have purple ears. Is it true? That would be a no. So I give it to Fido. He eats it up, and you know what else happens? That's what it's worth. So forget it, drive on. Okay? Because I don't give your words any power unless they have power. Oh, this made me mad. Well, how true was it? Well, it wasn't true. It doesn't have any power. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Romans 1:16. It is the power of God to salvation to everyone who believes. As powerful as the gospel is, I've got to give it power in my life or it doesn't do me any good. Right? Now, if God's word is limited like that, mine are, yours are, the bully down here is. So, is it true? No, drive on. Well, you said something about me, and it is true. Lonnie, you're short and bald. Is this true? Yeah, it is. So now we're going to ask another question. Can I change it? Nope. Been there, done that. Your parents are divorced. One of your legs is shorter than the other. You have a speech impediment. You have a hair lift. You're black, white, green, purple, skinny, fat, tall, short. We come from the factory with stuff. And guess what? It doesn't define who we are. It doesn't define anything. It's just us. So here's something you said about me. It's cruel. It's not nice. I'm aware of it, by the way. But it's true. Can I change it? No. So if you say something about me and I can't change it, guess what I'm going to do about that? I'm going to make peace with who I am. Forget it and drive on. Well, Lonnie, not only are you short and bald, but you're a little bit fluffy. Is that true? Yeah. Can I change it? Yeah. Does it need to change? Now, this is where I get in trouble. If I've made a choice about what I like to eat and what I like to do, I'm not a marathon runner, people. I'm a cruiserweight Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. I hang out with a SWAT team. Every Monday morning at 9:30, I go to Captain Jerry King's fun house. Captain King teaches Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He looks like the love child between a silverback gorilla and a grizzly bear. I wouldn't fight him in real life without a truck and a pistol. But I go in there and put hands on the guy, and I need to weigh a little bit heavier than the normal 5'4" dude to go in there and let Jerry the King put his hands on me. So am I overweight? Yeah. Can I change it? Yeah. Have I decided it doesn't need to? Does it need to change? Nope, it doesn't need to change. Guess who gets that? Now, this is where I get in trouble. Because if you've made some choices about how you're going to present in life, then you either need to embrace it and rock it or quit whining about it. Okay? Now, there are people in this room In fact, there's a dude sitting back there with a bright orange shirt on and a tee. And he is unapologetic about it. And he don't care what my opinion is about it. And I can talk to him about statistics and records and championships. He don't care. You know why? He's a Tennessee fan. And you can't rock his world about it. And he will stand up and sing Rocky Top if he thought he'd get away with it. Why? He doesn't need to change. I'm a Tennessee fan. Get you some of that. Right? Well, if you believe you're a little girl and I don't see it and it hurts your feelings, you must not believe it that strong. Everybody I ever met who had a delusion, it was a strong delusion, you couldn't hurt their feelings about their delusion. Had a guy tell me one time he was a 400-year-old FBI agent. I said, sir, the country's only been here 200 years. You can't be a 400-year-old FBI agent. He said, young man, I said I was 400 years old and an FBI agent. Try to pay better attention. He didn't care about my logic. So there's some things, and listen, people don't get dressed by accident. Okay, 7th grade boys do. Oh, yeah. But when somebody walks out and they're goth or they're hippie or they're retro or they're Bahamian or they're Rastafarian, somebody made a conscious choice. Hey, I've decided to go with that today. And if me saying something about it bothers you, make better choices tomorrow. Or decide, this is what I decided to wear. Get you some. I went to class the other day on a Monday, and we wear these things called rash guards. The one I wear has an exoskeleton on it. It looks like an exposed rib cage. And we don't give belts out. We have a ranked shirt. So it's purple. Can you imagine me in a purple shirt that's skin tight with rib cages on it? We wrestle. We train for an hour and then we wrestle for an hour. And there's no air conditioning in this room. So it's time for me to go to my office, and I realize I don't have another shirt. And so I'm going to put my blue jeans on. I can't live with that. So the closest place between where I work out and my office is the mall. And the only thing I know about the mall is the food court. Well, I wandered into a different place and was just going to buy me a shirt. My daughter gives me shirts with those little guys on them with a hammer and riding a horse. Oh, my goodness. I'm not paying $90 for a shirt. I'll mug a homeless guy and take his shirt before I'll put that. There's no way I'm doing that. So I start prowling around the mall thinking, I got to get the office and I got to have them closed. Sporting goods store. I walk in there. Cheapest shirt on the rack. Dark blue, Auburn University. If I cared any less about football, I'd be dead. But I've been wearing this Auburn shirt. I get home, Jackie says, I like that color on you. It's in the wardrobe. It's in the rotation. I don't know how many times a day I walk through town and go, War Eagle. I go, it's not what you think. Now here I am walking around apologizing for this stupid shirt. I'm not even a fan. Well, if I don't like people saying War Eagle to me, guess what I can do? I change my behavior. Does it need to change? Now, if you tell me something and it's true and I can change it and it needs to change, you've told me something that will make me a more positive or a better person, and I need to grow up and embrace it. And that's it. So when your children are told things or confronted with things, okay, what did they say to you? Is it true? Can you change it? Does it need to change? Why do we give other people this power in our lives when they shouldn't have it? Second thing that happens is when somebody picks on your children is you've got to ask yourself, when somebody picks on you, does it say more about you or more about them? Absolutely more about them. But we hear the message, I must be bad, I must be wrong, I must be, or they wouldn't pick on me. If, and that's a big if, okay? If I had the power to make you mad, I could make you happy. True or false? If it's true at A, it's true at Z. That's what makes it true. So if I can turn the light on, I can turn the light off. If I can make you mad, I can make you happy. I can make you cheat, I can make you faithful. I can make you drink, I can make you sober. If I can make you leave the church, I can make you sit on the front row every Sunday. If I can make you kill yourself, I can keep you alive. We're raising a generation of people who've abdicated personal responsibility. And I'm not going to accept responsibility for something I don't control. If I controlled your emotions, you'd like me and buy me presents. Right? That's like me calling Jack and say, honey, I'm on my way home. She says, you're in charge of supper. I throw the phone out there when I go, broccoli again. If I'm in charge of supper, guess what? Nothing green on the table. The stuff I eat green stuff, and I get it indirectly. But all of a sudden, this person treated me this way, and it's my fault you're acting. Well, no, it's not my fault you're acting that way. It says more about you than it does about me. And by the way, people who are aggressive are insecure. People who are aggressive almost always are afraid. I run around with some bad dudes. Tony Bryant is a Ranger, not a Ranger tab, a Ranger scroll. He's been in the big sandbox a couple of times, and their job is to walk through the streets and kick in doors. Dave Baggett's our team leader. They've been over there several times, a decorated combat veteran. Chris Luzak, combat veteran. Mike Weeks, a Green Beret. And they walk around in their skin so comfortable. They walk into a restaurant, and the restaurant gets quiet, like in that scene in The Last Samurai where they ride into town, but they're talking about their kids playing t-ball. And they're talking about their wives' anniversaries. But there's a confidence about those guys that when they walk in, they don't have to flex and pose. It's who they are. A mountain lion doesn't know he's a mountain lion. He knows he's not a deer. He doesn't care he's not a bear. If you've ever been blessed to see one of those creatures in the woods, it's just confidence. Confidence and humility is the absolute absence of self-consciousness. I don't have to worry about what you think about me. What does God think about me? And I've made some choices that align with God, and they don't need to change. And you call me any name, give me any label you want to give me. Now, a couple of examples in Scripture. In the book of Exodus, Moses runs away from home. He flees to the wilderness of Midian. While he's sitting by a well, 7 girls come out of the wilderness. Now, if you've run away from home and you can find fresh water and all of a sudden 7 girls show up, that never worked out like that when I ran away from home, okay? I ran out of cheese sandwiches and got cold, all right? This is happening right here. He watches this drama unfold. Now the priest of Midian, this is verse 16 of chapter 2. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water. They filled their troughs with water to water their father's flocks, and the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. So what had happened, these girls keep these sheep all day, and you know why this guy has 7 daughters? He kept trying for a son and he quit. Okay, strike one, strike two. So he's got these 7 girls who are having to run this sheep operation. And they come in from a long day of sheep, and sheep won't stick their head in a bucket. My cup runneth over. Sheep won't drink out of a stream that's making too much noise. You lead me beside still waters. So they have to pull water out of a well. Water weighs 8 pounds to the gallon, and they put it in a low trough. If you could turn these tables, these chairs like that, and picture that as a long trough. And so the sheep will line up and drink. Well, these shepherds watch these girls haul this water, and as soon as they get the water out, they come out of the woods, scatter their flock, let their sheep drink, then they go off, and these girls have to do it the second time. And apparently it happens every day. Because Moses, using the only skill set he has, which is conflict resolution at this point in his life, because he's out there because he killed an Egyptian, runs these guys off and waters their flock for them. So verse 18, and when they came to their father, he said, how is it you have come so soon today? Now what does that imply? They're late every other day. Why are you girls home after dark? Was it the shepherds again? Yeah, Dad's the shepherds. Are the bully shepherds at the water trough a perpetual issue? What did Ruel do about it? He let his daughters handle it as best they could. They didn't solve the problem. What did the shepherds do every day? Came out, ran their flocks off, watered theirs, and left. But Ruel didn't camp out. He didn't send a letter. His wife wasn't out there talking to the shepherd's mom. Life's a contact sport. And is it unfortunate? Yeah. Was it dangerous? No. Sometimes we have to teach our children life's not easy. And becoming an adult means you have to learn to walk some paths that are hard. Tommy Caldwell, in his book, The Push, says that we do not prepare the path for our children, but we rather prepare our children for the path. And so as parents, we have to teach our children self-efficacy. I'm capable, I'm significant, and my choices affect my outcomes. That's from Stephen Glenn's book, Raising Self-Reliant Children in a Self-Indulgent World. Self-esteem, how I feel about me, comes from confidence, and confidence comes from competence. That is my ability to do, my ability to perform, my ability to endure. Now, I know that's probably not the lesson you wanted to hear, but it's what it takes to make our children adults. Romans chapter 5 says tribulation, trouble, bullying. Tribulation produces perseverance. What does perseverance mean? Endurance. Long suffering, the ability to suffer long. Tribulation produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character. Character produces hope. And hope does not disappoint. That gives me the ability to say, well, I went through this, and I went through this, and I went through this. I probably survived that. Now, we're talking about the bell curve of behavior. I'm not talking about your children dealing with a narcissist or a predator or somebody with a personality disorder. Talking about the bell curve. This is normal interaction kid stuff. Can kids be mean and cruel? Yes. Are there things that they say mean and are they true? And even if you pick on me because I'm short and bald, does it devalue me as a person? Did Jesus die for short, bald people? I got just as much value as anybody else in this room. Period, plain and simple. Your words only have the power that I give them. And I've got to decide what I'm going to do with the power of your words. And then got to learn that there's a process to adulting. And some of that is that there are some things that make us uncomfortable, and we do the things that are uncomfortable because they're uncomfortable and need to be done. Now, I'm a dad. I've got a daughter with a learning disability. She's 4 foot 10 inches tall. I watched her play volleyball and heard Arkansas State sing the Oompa Loompa song with their band when she walked out on the court to serve. And then she served 7 aces. But anyway, okay, but we didn't shelter her from the fact that, you know, you're 4 foot 10, you want to play volleyball? What about gymnastics? What about racquetball? What about judo? What about being a miner? I mean, there are lots of things you can do with that skill set. But no, Dad, I'm going to play volleyball, 4 foot 10. Shortest person to ever play on a Division I court in the history of the NCAA. Now, in school, read the article she wrote about how she feels in a classroom versus how she feels on a volleyball court. Because here she felt competent, and here she felt incompetent. I said, you know, they don't measure your intelligence in school. They just measure academic intelligence. They don't measure kinesthetic intelligence. They don't measure athletic intelligence. They don't measure your emotional intelligence. Now, when the power went out in her dorm, she pulled the socket off the wall and rewired it. Her roommate, who was there on an academic scholarship, was crying in the dark. I said, you'd rather be smart like you or smart like Megan? She said, I'd rather be smart like me, Dad. It took her a long time to get there. But we didn't protect her from the fact that she couldn't do math. Hey, math's not your thing. You can't have a checkbook. You only spend cash. Is it true? Yes. Can I change it? No. and I mean, that was it. Her husband is a business major. You talk about some, anyway. So when you start talking to your children about bullies bully people because something's happened to them. Hurt people hurt people. Okay, people who have been hurt other people. I grant you that. But that's not my problem. Now, since I can't control your behavior, there's nothing I can do, not do, say, or not say to make you not be a bully. But I can determine whether or not you bully me. All human behavior is reward motivated. I do what I do the way I do it because it gets me something I want. And so I have to teach my children that you don't have to respond when a bully pushes your buttons. That button doesn't get him the same result with you that it does everybody else. The biggest thing is don't show any emotion about it. It's not true. Can't be changed. I don't want to change it. But if I can say something to you or do something to you and I can get a reaction from you, get you in that fight or flight mode, that autonomic nervous system take over, now you feel like you're in danger. Now you feel like you're threatened. Now you feel like you're incompetent. And you're letting a message that somebody else is saying about themselves define you as a person. Now, in studies of emotional intelligence, we have found out that bullies and those who are susceptible to bullying, those who overreact to it, both have an interpretation error. They will take an innocuous event and they will over-interpret it as being more aggressive than it really was. You show a film, guy walking down the hall, got his books, a kid bumps into him, knocks his hand out of the book. A room full of bullies go, hey, he needs to be busted. He attacked that kid, I'd punch his lights out. A room full of kids who are bullied would go, oh man, that guy was being mean, knocked his books down. A group of middle-range kids would go, hey, you know, it's a crowded hallway and people running each other. And gravity still works. And sometimes kids are bullies and they are bullied because of an interpretation error. So when you communicate with your children about these kind of things, you can't be emotion dismissing. Oh, you don't really feel that way. You can't be emotion disapproving. You shouldn't feel that way. You've got to align with them and say, okay, so let me make sure that I understand you. This guy didn't do, said, didn't say, these girls wouldn't let you, whatever. And instead of us telling them, we let them tell us, and we demonstrate that we understand them. 70% of children's emotional communication with their parents, children say, are misunderstood, unheard, and rejected. And your job as a parent talking to your children about anything is to let them feel heard, understood, and accepted. Your conversations with your children need to go from this to this. Because when I can see the world from your perspective, now I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to think it's reasonable. I don't have to think it's logical. I don't have to think it's rational. Oh, I get that when they said that, that made you feel this way. Yes, Mom, it made me feel. And tell me more about that. Oh, wow, that must have crushed your little spirit. Yeah. Well, now, is that really who you are? Does the fact that those girls won't let you sit at the table mean you can't pass college or you can't play football? No, it doesn't mean that, okay? But you've got to let them feel like you get them before you can do any intervention. The behavioral change stairwell. Active listening creates empathy. Empathy creates rapport. Rapport creates influence. Influence creates behavioral change. What we tend to do is tell our children how to solve problems from a logical mind rather than an emotional mind. Everybody get that? My wife is a very intelligent lady. She taught advanced biology. Can tell you the kingdom, order, phylum, genus, and species of a mouse. Can tell you how many grams they weigh, but let one run into the kitchen. You think that intellectual mind responds to that mouse? It becomes a rat, and I need to shoot it. That's fairly extreme, especially with the new hardwoods, okay? But if, oh, honey, now that little rat, you know what I do? I deal with a rat. And then when she's calmed down, I say, now tell me about this. Was it really a rat or was it a mouse? Was it a wood mouse or a field mouse or a house mouse? Honey, here's the mouse. Ah! It's dead. Oh, wow, he's kind of cute. Sorry you felt that way about him. He's dead now. You hadn't overreacted. We're going to kill, but you got to align first before you can do any leading with your children. That makes sense? All right, I'm going to take a breath. We're going to cut the mic off and see if you have any questions.